What Hawass just described is not a rumor, not a theory, and not a leak from some fringe researcher working outside the system. That is Egypt's own government confirming, on the record, that a hidden passage sat completely untouched behind the Great Pyramid's chevron stones for 4,500 years. Nobody went in. Nobody knew. And the endoscopic camera they finally threaded through that gap captured rough, unfinished stone that no human hand had touched since the age of the pharaohs. But here's the part that should stop you cold. This corridor is not the only void they've found. The Great Pyramid has been studied, measured, debated, and excavated for centuries. Scholars have mapped its outer casing, climbed its courses, and crawled through its known passages so many times the stones themselves seem worn by the attention. And yet, somehow, it kept a secret. 2 confirmed hidden voids now sit inside that structure, sealed behind millions of tons of limestone, waiting. If the engineers of ancient Egypt concealed not 1, but 2 spaces inside the most analyzed monument on Earth, the entire story of how and why this thing was built may need to be rewritten from scratch. The question driving everything that follows is simple and completely unanswered. What else is in there? Here is what makes this discovery different from every pyramid theory you have ever heard. The scientists did not dig. They did not guess. They aimed cosmic rays at the stone and let the universe do the work for them. The technique is called muon tomography. Muons are subatomic particles produced when cosmic rays from deep space slam into the upper atmosphere. They rain down on the surface of the Earth constantly, billions of them every single minute, and they pass through almost everything. Dense rock slows them and absorbs them. Empty space does not. So when researchers position muon detectors inside or around a large stone structure and measure exactly how many particles arrive from each direction, they can build a 3-dimensional map of what is solid and what is not. Bright anomalies on that map mean one thing: there is nothing there where something should be. The Scan Pyramids project launched in 2015 with a mandate that was almost absurdly ambitious. An international coalition of scientists from France, Japan, Canada, and Egypt deployed not 1, but 3 entirely independent muon detection systems simultaneously. The logic was airtight. If 3 different technologies, built by 3 different teams, using 3 different methods, all registered the same anomaly in the same location, then the anomaly was real. There was no room left for instrument error, no space for wishful interpretation. The data would either converge or it would not. It converged. But the researchers did not stop at muons. Ground-penetrating radar was brought in to probe the pyramid's interior from different angles. Ultrasound equipment was deployed to measure acoustic responses through the stone. Both independently produced results that matched what the muon detectors had already flagged. 3 separate technologies, 3 separate scientific disciplines, 1 conclusion. Something was hidden inside the Great Pyramid that the official maps had never shown. Now here is where the methodology becomes almost poetic in its precision. Muon tomography had already been used successfully to peer inside volcanoes. Scientists in Japan had mapped the internal chambers of active calderas without drilling a single hole, tracking magma movement through solid rock by reading the shadows cosmic particles cast as they passed through. The Great Pyramid project borrowed that same logic and applied it to a man-made mountain of limestone blocks, some of them weighing up to 80 tons. The pyramid is roughly 138 meters tall and contains an estimated 2.3 million individual stones. And the muon detectors found gaps that none of those stones were supposed to leave. The process of elimination is what gives this its weight. The known chambers, the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, The Grand Gallery. All of them showed up exactly where they were supposed to on the muon maps. The technology worked. The known spaces were confirmed. And then, sitting above the Grand Gallery in a position that matched no existing architectural plan, was something else entirely. A brightness on the map where only darkness should have been. The Scan Pyramids team published their initial findings in the journal Nature in 2017. The anomaly above the Grand Gallery was described as a large void, at least 30 meters long, with a cross-section comparable to the Grand Gallery itself. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities reviewed the data. Independent physicists reviewed the methodology. Nobody could explain it away. Nobody could make it disappear by recalculating the numbers. It was there. And then the corridor behind the chevrons was confirmed in 2023. Smaller and lower, a completely separate void in a completely separate location. Two voids, two sealed spaces, both invisible to the naked eye, both revealed only because particles from the far edge of the galaxy happened to pass through limestone at the right angle at the right moment. But the corridor confirmed in March 2023 was not the anomaly that stopped the Scan Pyramids team in their tracks back in 2017. The first thing they found was bigger, much bigger, and what it might contain is a question that has not been answered yet. In 2017, a team of international physicists published a paper in the journal Nature that sent a shockwave through the archaeology world. Their finding was specific, measurable, and impossible to dismiss. Somewhere above the Grand Gallery, one of the most celebrated architectural features inside the Great Pyramid, there was a void. Not a crack, not a seam between blocks. A massive, empty space that had been sitting there, completely unknown, for 4,500 years. The minimum confirmed length was 30 meters. Think about that for a moment. 30 meters is roughly the length of 3 double-decker buses parked end to end. And the cross-section of this void appeared to mirror the Grand Gallery directly below it. That soaring, corbelled passage that has amazed visitors for centuries. Whatever this space was, it wasn't accidental. Its dimensions were deliberate. Its proportions were too close to the Grand Galleries to be a coincidence. But here is where the story gets harder to dismiss. The Scan Pyramids team didn't rely on a single method. They used 3 entirely independent muon detection technologies: nuclear emulsion films, scintillator hodoscopes, and gas detectors, deployed by separate research groups. The Japanese team from Nagoya University ran their analysis. The French team from CEA ran theirs. They compared notes. All 3 methods pointed to the same location. All 3 agreed on the scale. 3 different technologies, 3 different teams, one enormous hidden space sitting silently above one of the most studied corridors in human history. The Egyptological community had no explanation ready. No blueprint in the historical record described this space. No ancient text referenced it. No precedent existed anywhere in Egyptian architecture for a void of this size sitting in this position. Egyptologists who had spent entire careers studying this structure were suddenly confronted with something they had never accounted for. The pyramid they thought they understood had been keeping a secret. A very large one. What that void contains remains officially unknown. Is it a chamber? A stress relief construction? An undiscovered passage leading somewhere deeper? The 2017 Nature paper confirmed it existed. It stopped well short of explaining why. And the researchers were careful, deliberately, methodically careful, not to speculate beyond what the data showed. That restraint was scientifically responsible. It was also, for anyone following this story, almost unbearable. Because the big void didn't give up its secrets in 2017, the team kept scanning. They kept refining their data, and in doing so, they found something else. Something smaller. Something closer to the surface. Something that, unlike the big void, they could actually reach. And what they found when they looked inside changed the question entirely. Here is the specific claim, and it is not a theory. In 2016, the Scan Pyramids team detected a second anomaly, this one on the north face of the pyramid, tucked just behind the chevron blocks that have decorated that section of the exterior for millennia. It was smaller than the Big Void, much smaller, but its location was precise. Its dimensions were consistent across multiple scans, and it was sitting in a part of the pyramid that nobody had seriously investigated before. 7 years later, in 2023, the team published their findings in Nature Communications. The corridor measures 9 meters long, 2 meters wide, and 2.18 meters high. Those are not estimated figures. Those are confirmed measurements, verified through a combination of muon tomography and ground-penetrating radar, and then physically confirmed through direct endoscopic investigation. The space exists. It has walls, it has a floor, it has a ceiling, and it has been sealed behind the outer face of the pyramid at an elevation of 20 meters, hidden just 0.8 meters behind the chevron blocks that mark the north face. Now, the chevrons themselves are worth pausing on. Those triangular arrangements of limestone have been visible to anyone looking at the north face for thousands of years. Scholars have debated their purpose for just as long. Some believed they were purely decorative. Others argued they were structural, designed to distribute weight away from the entrance corridor below. What nobody seriously proposed was that they were concealing something, that the very stones everyone had been looking at were functioning as a door. When the team inserted an endoscope, a thin, flexible camera, through a small joint between the stones, what they captured was not polished ceremonial masonry. The footage showed rough, unfinished walls, irregular surfaces, visible tool marks left by the workers who carved the space. This was not a chamber that had been prepared for a pharaoh. The stonework had the look of a functional construction space, something built with a purpose in mind, then sealed before that purpose was completed, or sealed because the purpose had already been served. Those tool marks are significant. They are direct physical evidence of human hands working inside that space. Workers stood in that corridor. They chiseled. They shaped. They left marks that survived 4,500 years of complete darkness, waiting for a camera the size of a finger to finally bring them back into the light. But here is what the endoscope footage did not show. It did not show what lies beyond the end of the corridor. The space narrows. The camera's reach has limits, and at the far end, there is something the team has not yet been able to fully characterize. The corridor does not simply terminate in a blank wall. There appears to be more. The unfinished stonework raises a question that no one in the field has answered yet. If this space was a construction corridor, why was it sealed so precisely behind the outer chevrons? Construction corridors don't usually get hidden. They don't usually get disguised behind the most visually prominent feature on that face of the building, unless someone wanted to make sure it stayed hidden. And that raises an entirely different kind of question about what the builders were trying to protect. The tool marks are not decoration. They are evidence. And what they suggest about the purpose of this corridor points towards something far more deliberate than a simple construction byproduct. Researcher Keith Hamilton drew a direct comparison between this corridor and the stress relief chambers found at the pyramid complex at Abu Sir. Those chambers were functional spaces built into the structure to manage the enormous compressive forces generated by millions of tons of limestone bearing down from above. They were engineering solutions, practical, purposeful, and critically, they were built into the pyramid's internal architecture at specific points where structural stress was highest. The north face corridor sits directly behind the chevrons, which are themselves positioned above the main entrance corridor. That is precisely the kind of location where a stress management feature would make architectural sense. But stress relief chambers at Abu Sir are not sealed behind decorative stonework. They are not hidden. They are not tucked behind the most recognizable feature on an exterior face at a specific elevation. The comparison explains some of the engineering logic. It does not explain the concealment. Dr. Zahi Hawass, the former Egyptian Minister of Antiquities and one of the most prominent Egyptologists alive, did not downplay this discovery. When the 2023 findings were announced, he said the discovery would, quote, enter the homes of people all over the world. That is not the language of a man describing a minor architectural footnote. That is the language of someone who understands what this finding represents, not just for archaeology, but for the public understanding of one of the most studied structures in human history. And Hawass went further. He has stated publicly, and with conviction, that Khufu's real burial chamber is still hidden somewhere inside the pyramid. The chamber that tourists walk past, the one officially designated as the king's chamber, may not be where the pharaoh was actually interred. The pyramid's internal architecture, he argues, is not fully understood. The big void above the Grand Gallery is unexplained. The north face corridor is newly confirmed. And somewhere inside 4,500 years of tightly fitted limestone, the actual resting place of one of the most powerful rulers in human history may still be waiting. That is not a fringe position. That is the considered opinion of the man who spent decades overseeing Egyptian antiquities, expressed after reviewing the same scan data that stunned the physics community in 2017 and the archaeology community in 2023. So consider what the builders left behind. They left tool marks that suggest real workers, real labor, real decisions made in real time. They left a space with specific dimensions that mirror known architectural features. They left a corridor sealed so precisely that it went undetected for 45 centuries. And they left it in a location that sits between the outer face of the pyramid and whatever lies deeper inside. If this corridor was sealed deliberately, and the evidence strongly suggests it was, then the question is not just what it is. The question is what it was protecting. Because people do not hide things unless those things are worth hiding. And somewhere beyond the reach of that endoscope camera, past the point where the corridor narrows and the footage ends, the answer may still be there. The pyramid is not finished giving up its secrets. The next scan could rewrite everything we thought we knew again. Drop your theory about that hidden chamber below, and subscribe for the next revelation.